They say most marriages don't end with a bang. They dissolve slowly, like sugar in cold water. That's how it felt with Haley and me. We weren't fireworks. We were rhythm. Morning coffee together, a kiss before work, shared grocery lists stuck to the fridge. We folded each other into our habits. 10 years in, and I thought we had it figured out. Not perfect, not passionate, but solid. You stop asking for magic when you've built something reliable. That's what I used to tell myself. We'd never been the couple who overshared on social media or threw loud parties. Our version of romance was budgeting together for a new dishwasher or splitting a bottle of wine on a rainy Thursday night while watching a Ken Burns documentary. She'd curl up with her sketchbook, and I'd highlight pages in some obscure World War II memoir. Boring to some, but it was ours. Then Lana returned. Haley's college roommate. I'd heard the stories for years, how they'd once dyed their hair with Kool-Aid on a dare, how they skipped lectures to see indie bands that barely existed, how they road-tripped across Utah in a car that barely had brakes. Lana was the wild friend, the one Haley credited for keeping her young, even back then. She moved back to Seattle with her husband, Zach. Zach with the steel watch and perfect posture. Zach who seemed to know how to fill a room without raising his voice. The kind of man who made other men feel like they'd missed some secret class in their 20s on how to walk, talk, and charm. I met him for the first time at a brunch Haley planned. Our apartment was cleaner than I'd ever seen it. Haley had rearranged the throw pillows 3 times before they arrived. She wore a sundress I didn't recognize. Old favorite, she said when I asked. She'd never worn it for me. When Zach and Lana walked through the door, I caught the way Haley's face lit up. Not just happiness. A switch had flipped. Her voice changed slightly. The rhythm of her laugh adjusted. She became someone else. A version of herself I didn't know, or maybe hadn't seen in a decade. I stood across the kitchen island, watching her recount old stories with Zach, watching her ignore how I reached for her hand and she didn't notice. That was the start. After that day, Haley's energy shifted. She downloaded a wine tasting app, joined a yoga studio, something she used to scoff at as stretching in expensive leggings. She started talking about ambition in ways that didn't sound like her voice. Zach says it's important to think long-term, vision, intentionality. She used words like pivot and level up, and the way she said his name like a punctuation mark to a sentence she wanted me to finish. I let it go. I told myself I was being old-fashioned, insecure, ridiculous, but it built up. She became more secretive with her phone. It used to sit face down on the nightstand, forgotten until morning. Now it was glued to her hand or locked away in her bag. Once, I walked into the room, and she jumped, like she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't. She laughed it off, said she was watching reels. I wanted to believe her. That's the thing, when you love someone, you want to believe them more than you want to believe yourself. I ignored the small things. The perfume I didn't recognize. The new lace underwear that I never saw again after laundry day. The sudden decision to declutter her side of the closet, removing things she used to love. She said she was curating. I started to feel like a guest in my own home. I would wake up in the middle of the night and look over at her, scrolling in the dark, the blue glow of her screen painting shadows across her face. I never asked what she was looking at. I didn't want to hear her lie to me. Then came that Sunday morning. We were both home. No plans. She made French press coffee and left it on the table like always. I took mine to the den, grading papers. Haley disappeared into the bathroom, singing softly to a playlist that sounded curated for someone else entirely. Sultry, hip, curated like her wardrobe now. I heard the shower turn on, steam trailing under the door. Her phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't mean to snoop, I swear. But sometimes, the universe puts the truth right in front of you and waits to see if you'll look away. It lit up with a preview from someone labeled ZL. Not Zach. Not Zach Langley. Just ZL, like a code. Like she didn't want me to ask about it. Missed that laugh yesterday. I'll be thinking about it all day. Your trouble, H. I read it twice, heart pounding, each word sinking deeper. Missed that laugh. Thinking about it all day. Trouble. Trouble. I took a step back. Then another. like I'd accidentally stumbled into a crime scene. She came out of the shower a few minutes later, wrapped in a towel, humming. She smiled when she saw me. "What?" she asked, drying her hair. I forced a breath. "Your phone buzzed, ZL." She barely missed a beat. "Oh, Zach. He sends dumb stuff. He's like that with everyone. Everyone. Right?" I nodded slowly. "Huh." She raised an eyebrow. "Why do you ask?" I paused. "Just curious." That was the end of it, according to her. But it was just the beginning for me. I spent the rest of the day in a haze, running errands, pretending everything was normal. My mind kept looping back to that message. Not the words necessarily, but the in asterisk Macy underneath them. The unspoken familiarity. The nickname. The implication. That night, I lay awake while she slept beside me. Her breathing was steady, peaceful. Like someone with nothing to hide. Like someone who had already rewritten the rules of what fidelity meant in her mind. I stared at the ceiling and realized something had fractured. Quietly. Permanently. I still didn't want to believe it. But now I had evidence. A clue, not proof, not yet, but enough to change the lens through which I saw everything. ZL had become the watermark behind every moment, every excuse, every laugh that felt rehearsed. I didn't know what would come next. But I knew with certainty that we were no longer the couple I thought we were. Not even close. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on my side watching the faint glow of Haley's phone screen reflected on the ceiling as she scrolled in silence. The blue light flickered like a heartbeat, and with each flash, another doubt formed in my mind. I'd spent the day pretending I was fine, nodding at conversations, mowing the lawn, listening to podcasts I couldn't focus on. But I wasn't fine. I was replaying every moment of the last few months like a historian combing through old footage, looking for what I missed. The problem was, once I opened that door, I couldn't close it. Little things. Always little things. Her sudden fixation on wine. Not just red or white, but notes, varietals, decanting. We used to joke that wine people were snobs. Haley called it grape juice with an attitude. Now she had a $45 corkscrew and a shelf of labels with French names she could pronounce perfectly. The clothes. The makeup. The gym membership. She said she didn't want me to join with her. "It's just my thing," she said, brushing it off. And then there were the stories. Or rather, the rewrites. She started bringing up college again, but it was always in ways that surprised me. New anecdotes, new characters, new emphasis. Zach kept appearing in them almost like he'd always been central to her memories, and I was just now catching on. "You know, Zach always used to say this thing," or back then, Zach was the only one who could get me to calm down when I freaked out about finals. Things she'd never mentioned in 10 years of marriage. It was as if her past was being revised and Zach had been inserted more prominently in the retelling. I started seeing a version of Haley I didn't recognize, animated, expressive, lively in a way that didn't include me. Her laughs during text exchanges, the secretive half-smiles she wore while stirring soup or reading on the couch. I would ask what was so funny. She'd shrug and say, just Lana being Lana. But Lana wasn't the one messaging her at 11 p.m. And then the comparisons started. Casual at first. "Zach's a really good listener. He's so driven, it's inspiring. He always makes time for his family even with how crazy his schedule is." I wanted to believe she was just excited to reconnect with old friends. But over time, those statements began to feel like quiet critiques. Not of me directly, but of who I wasn't. I catch myself wondering if I was enough. If I'd become too comfortable, too safe. I started second-guessing everything, how often I complimented her, how I dressed, how I laughed. Was I boring? Predictable? Was I losing her because I'd stopped being new? Once you start questioning your reality, it snowballs. I remembered a dinner we had with Zach and Lana not long after they returned. We met at a Mediterranean place, dim lights, soft music, the kind of place you linger after dessert. I'd shared a story about a student who turned in a paper using ChatGPT to explain the Cold War. It was funny, light. Haley usually loved my classroom stories. But that night, she barely reacted. Instead, she spent 10 minutes recounting a conversation she'd had with Zach at the gym. Something about managing burnout, personal branding, and the value of vision. Zach nodded along like a TED Talk was unfolding. I sat there, nodding too, feeling like a prop in a scene I didn't audition for. I laughed it off then. Said I was just tired. But now that memory felt sharper, like a missed alarm I should have heard ringing. Haley's phone became a fortress. It never left her side. Not even in the bathroom. I once asked her if I could check the time while we were driving, and she hesitated just long enough to make it obvious. Then she handed it to me already open to the calendar. The screen went dark in less than 5 seconds. Before all this, she used to leave it charging in the kitchen overnight. Now, it was password always flipped down. Even the way she picked it up when a message came through, like it was a reflex, like hiding it was muscle memory. I felt myself slipping into someone I didn't want to be. Paranoid. Suspicious. A man taking mental notes on his own wife's movements. I started noticing the exact times she left for yoga. I clocked how long she took at the grocery store. I logged how often plans with Lana turned into hours unaccounted for. I never confronted her. Not directly. But I started testing things. One morning, I casually mentioned that I might swing by her yoga class after work, maybe catch the second half. She looked up from her cereal with a flash of something annoyance. Panic? You'd be bored, she said quickly. It's all stretching and breathing. Not really your thing. Another time, I suggested we invite Lana and Zach over for dinner again. She paused mid-text, then shrugged. I'll check with them. Her voice had a rehearsed calm, like someone trying to steer around a pothole without looking down. It wasn't just me noticing either. My colleague Eric, who'd met Haley a dozen times, asked if everything was okay. You guys just seem different, he said. She's kind of in her own orbit lately. I brushed it off with some line about work stress. But it stuck with me. I wasn't the only one who felt the shift. The worst part? I missed her. I missed the old Haley, the one who stole my fries and made fun of my historical documentaries. The one who wrote sticky notes with bad puns and left them in my briefcase. That Haley was still here physically, still sipping coffee across from me each morning. But emotionally, she felt 1,000 miles away. And I didn't know how to reach her anymore. I started dreaming about her. Not nightmares, just strange, disjointed flashes. In one dream, I was standing on the sidewalk watching her drive away in Zach's car. She didn't look back. In another, we were in our kitchen and she kept asking me to find something, but every drawer I opened was empty. It felt like my subconscious was screaming at me, something's gone missing. I told myself I needed to be rational. That maybe I was projecting, overthinking. But then I'd remember that text. Your trouble, H. That's not something you send a friend's wife. And the worst part? She didn't even deny it. She redirected. Reframed. As if I were the one making something out of nothing. That was what really broke me. Not the message. Not the hiding. But the gaslighting. The subtle rewriting of our reality until I couldn't trust my own instincts anymore. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But a quiet, gnawing voice in my gut, the one I'd silenced for weeks, was growing louder. Something was happening. And whatever it was, it didn't include me. Trevor Mason, 39, history professor, Seattle. There's a moment right before something breaks when everything feels too still. Like the universe takes a breath before exhaling the truth. That Thursday started like any other. Haley poured coffee into the ceramic mug I bought her in Vancouver, the one with the faded mountains and cracked handle. She wore a green sweater I hadn't seen in months. Her hair was braided the way she used to do it in grad school, and for a second I forgot what I knew. For a second she looked like my wife again. I'm doing wine and paint with Lana tonight, she said, stirring her coffee with a chopstick. Shouldn't be late. I nodded. Sounds fun. It wasn't the words that got me. It was how she said them. Too smooth. Like she'd practiced them in her head. There was no I think or maybe. It was final, locked in. No room for questions. Where is it? I asked, pretending to be casual. Downtown, she said. Some studio off Pine. I'll text you the name. She never did. I sat at my desk that day pretending to grade midterms. But the words blurred together. My mind ran circles. I told myself I needed to stop. To let it go. People deserve privacy. People deserve trust. But this wasn't about privacy. It was about reality. And I couldn't ignore mine any longer. So around 6:30 after she left, I got in the car. I didn't have a real plan. I didn't know what I'd do if I saw something. A part of me hoped I wouldn't. That I'd drive to some paint-splattered studio filled with laughing women holding half-finished landscapes and sipping Cabernet. I wanted to be wrong. I would have given anything to be wrong. But the studio was closed. Lights off. Doors locked. A sign in the window read closed for private event, Saturday only. I stared at it for a long time, sitting in the car with the engine running. I didn't feel angry. Not yet. Just hollow. I drove aimlessly for a while. Through Capitol Hill, past Pike Place. I couldn't tell you what I was looking for. Maybe proof. Maybe closure. But mostly, I was following a feeling, this ache in my chest that pulled me further from home and closer to whatever I didn't want to find. Then I saw them. Candlelight flickered behind the wide windows of a quiet cafe tucked between a record store and a flower shop. I recognized her laugh before I even parked. It was Haley. And she was sitting across from Zach. I stayed in the shadows, watching through the glass like I didn't belong to my own life. They were close, closer than friends should be. His hand rested on the table, fingers brushing hers. Her body leaned forward, face lit with the kind of joy I hadn't seen in months. She looked young. Alive. Like someone in love. She reached across the table, touching his wrist lightly. He smiled. That was the moment. The confirmation I didn't want. I didn't barge in. I didn't throw open the door or shout or demand answers. I took out my phone, snapped one photo. Then I turned and walked away. The drive home was silent. No music. No thoughts. Just the rhythmic sound of tires on pavement and the quiet unraveling of everything I believed about my marriage. By the time I walked through our front door, something in me had changed. It wasn't rage. It wasn't sorrow, even. It was resolve. The kind that sets in when there's nothing left to salvage. Haley got home around 10:45. I was in bed pretending to sleep. She whispered, "Hey," kissed my cheek, and slipped under the covers. I didn't move. I couldn't. The next morning, she made pancakes. She asked if I wanted to go hiking that weekend. I said maybe. She kissed me goodbye like she hadn't been with someone else the night before. I watched her drive off and then sat at the kitchen table staring at the plant she kept by the window. A gift from Zach and Lana last fall. It was wilting now, yellowing at the edges. I hadn't noticed before. Everything felt like that plant, dying slowly while we pretended not to see. I opened a blank document on my laptop. Typed a list. Photo equals proof. Lawyer consultation. Find apartment. Cancel anniversary reservation. Reopen savings account. Each item felt like a step away from her. A small exit from the shared life we'd built. I still didn't confront her. Not yet. Not because I was afraid, but because I needed to be precise. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want a scene. I wanted something cleaner. More deliberate. There's a dignity in silence. A kind of strength in not giving someone the explosion they expect. I wasn't going to shatter plates or scream accusations. I was going to reclaim my story without their permission. That afternoon I called an attorney. Explained what I'd seen. He didn't flinch. Just asked for the photo, some dates, a basic timeline. He said it was enough. More than enough. You're ahead of the curve, he told me. Most people wait too long to act. I guess part of me had been preparing for this for weeks. Maybe months. I found a one-bedroom apartment in Fremont. It was small, with exposed brick and bad lighting. But it had a desk by the window and a door I could close without permission. That was enough. I didn't tell anyone, not my coworkers, not my brother, not even my best friend Dan. I needed time to get the pieces in place before I opened the wound to the world. Haley kept texting me about plans, dinners, movies, a hike with Zach and Lana. I kept saying maybe. Maybe became a shield. That Saturday, I watched her pack for a weekend retreat with Lana. She was humming again, moving through the bedroom like someone unburdened. She kissed me before leaving. Said, "I love you." I said it back. But I didn't feel it. That night, I sat on the floor of the new apartment and built a bookshelf from IKEA. Screwed each piece in place with care. It was the first thing I'd assembled alone in 10 years. I didn't even listen to music. I just listened to the sound of something beginning. When I came back home the next morning, everything felt artificial. Her voice. Her smile. The way she asked if I wanted to make pasta together that night. It was all rehearsed. Scripted. A performance. And I was done being her audience. That's when I decided to invite them over, Zach and Lana. A final dinner. I told her it was about reconnecting. Rebuilding. She lit up, said it was a great idea. I could see the relief on her face, like the test had been passed, the affair hidden successfully. But I wasn't giving her relief. I was giving her the ending she earned. The next few days were quiet. I went through the motions, work, emails, dishes. But each moment had purpose. Each interaction was rehearsed like I was playing a role. The loyal husband. The forgiving spouse. Inside, I was already gone. When I looked at her now, I didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger holding a mask that used to look like someone I loved. The invitation was simple. A text sent on a quiet Tuesday morning. Thinking we should have Zach and Lana over. Maybe dinner at ours this weekend? Something low-key. Just to reconnect. Haley responded with a heart emoji, and I'd love that. No questions, no hesitation. Of course she loved it. In her mind, I had bought it, the story, the cover, the lie. She probably saw it as a chance to prove everything was normal again. For me, it wasn't a reunion. It was the final act. I wasn't planning a dinner. I was planning an ending. I chose Friday. Something about it felt right. Final. Symbolic. End of the week, end of the lie. I took that day off from work. Haley thought I was prepping the house, shopping, cleaning, planning the meal. And I was. But that wasn't all I was doing. By noon, I had confirmed the lease for my apartment and signed the retainer with my attorney. I had moved my personal savings to a new account under just my name. I had 2 duffel bags packed and hidden in the trunk of my car. Clothes, passport, laptop, toothbrush. The basics. The essentials. The things I'd need for the next chapter. There was a strange peace in the motions. I wasn't angry. I wasn't panicking. I felt organized. Like I was restoring something that had gone off script. Like I was reclaiming authorship over my own story. Back home, I made the guest list look natural, texted Lana with a breezy message. Haley and I were talking long overdue dinner. You guys free Friday? She responded after a pause. Sure. Sounds nice. I wondered what she knew. If she had even the faintest suspicion of what her husband and her best friend had done behind both our backs. Or maybe she knew exactly and didn't know how to confront it. Maybe she was waiting, just like me, for something undeniable. I spent the afternoon cleaning, polishing silverware, washing wine glasses, dusting the tops of cabinets no one would notice. I set the table early, then reset it twice more just to feel like I had control over something. The menu was intentional. Haley's favorites, mushroom risotto, garlic roasted Brussels sprouts, and a bottle of French wine Zach had once raved about. I found the same vintage. Let her taste the memory with every sip. When she came home from work, her face lit up. Wow, she said, dropping her bag. You really went all out. I smiled. Felt like the right night for it. She kissed my cheek and headed to the bedroom. I watched her go. I wondered if she noticed how quiet I'd been lately. Or if she assumed my silence meant surrender. Zach and Lana arrived just after 7. Haley opened the door with the enthusiasm of a game show host. You made it, she said, hugging Lana first, then Zach. I stayed behind her, holding 2 glasses of wine. Zach's face was unreadable. Smooth. Controlled. The same polished expression he wore at every dinner, every brunch, every time he talked about portfolio growth or market shifts. A man so used to performance he didn't know how to do anything else. Lana looked tired. Not physically, emotionally. Her smile felt pulled. Fragile. I made eye contact with her and held it for just a moment longer than polite. She looked away. We made small talk. Politics, weather, new restaurants. Haley brought up a podcast she liked, and Zach chimed in with a related article he'd read. They talked with the ease of people who'd been in constant contact. Haley laughed a little too often. Smiled a little too wide. She was putting on a show. And I let her. I asked Lana how work was going. She shrugged. Busy. That was it. She barely touched her wine. Dinner unfolded like a script written in advance. Haley guided the conversation, Zach backed her up, and I nodded where appropriate. If someone had taken a photo of us, we would have looked like 4 friends enjoying a perfect evening. But every word spoken was a prop. Every smile, a costume. Haley did most of the talking. She told a story about a hiking trip we took years ago and how I'd refused to eat freeze-dried stroganoff. He's so set in his ways, she said, laughing. Zach chuckled. Classic Trevor. I smiled politely. Inside, I was counting down the minutes. Haley kept positioning me in her stories like a project. Like something she had slowly shaped over the years. He used to hate yoga, but now he stretches every morning. I tell him it's about evolution. Zach smirked. Or influence. They both laughed. Lana didn't. Eventually, the plates were cleared. Haley brought out dessert, vanilla panna cotta in little mason jars. I watched her as she handed one to Zach. Their fingers brushed for a second longer than necessary. No one else noticed. But I did. When she sat back down, I reached into my pocket. I kept the photo on my phone, just one image taken through the cafe window. Blurry but unmistakable. Their hands close. Their faces closer. I placed the phone on the table, screen up, image glowing. Haley stopped mid-sentence. Zach's jaw tightened. Lana looked at the photo and blinked slowly. No one spoke. The silence that followed was so sharp it could have shattered the wine glasses. Haley opened her mouth, but no sound came. Lana stood up. She didn't say a word. Just picked up her purse, walked to the door, and left. Zach hesitated, then followed, leaving only me and Haley. She sat frozen, her face pale. Trevor, it's not, she started. I raised a hand. Don't, I said, my voice calm. Not tonight. She swallowed hard. I didn't mean it. You meant every bit of it, I said, standing. And I'm not here to argue. I'm here to end this. She stared at the photo again. Like she hoped it would morph into something else. But it didn't. It was exactly what it was. A picture of the truth. I packed a few things, I said. I'll be out by midnight. She looked up, eyes wide. You're leaving. I nodded. You left a long time ago. I'm just catching up. Time slows when you're sitting across from someone who has betrayed you but doesn't know you know. It's like watching an actor improvise a scene they think they're still directing, unaware the script's been flipped. That dinner was exactly that, a theater production Haley thought she was starring in. I was just a stagehand waiting for my final cue. The air in the room after Zach and Lana left was thick. Haley sat frozen, staring at the photo still glowing on the table. The screen dimmed. She didn't reach to tap it. I stood and walked to the kitchen. Washed my hands. Ran the water too long. My thoughts were surprisingly still. There was no rage. No panic. Just a kind of exhausted clarity. A finality. When I came back into the dining room, Haley hadn't moved. She was still in that chair, the untouched panna cotta still in front of her. You didn't eat, I said, sitting back down. She blinked. Trevor. I don't know what even is this? I tilted my head. That's a photo. Of you. With Zach. On Thursday. The Wine and Paint studio was closed, by the way. Her mouth opened but nothing came out. I didn't want to make this ugly, I continued. And I'm not here to shout. I've done enough thinking for both of us. And I already know everything I need to know. She finally found her voice. It's not what it looks like. I laughed. Not mockingly, just tired. You know, that might be the most predictable sentence in the English language. She stood, pushing her chair back. Please, just let me explain. Explain what? How you accidentally ended up emotionally and probably physically involved with the husband of your best friend. Or how you gaslit me for weeks while you lit up like a teenager every time he texted you. Her face crumpled, but I wasn't aiming to wound her. I wasn't aiming at all. I was simply done. It wasn't supposed to happen, she whispered. I believe that, I said. But it did. Silence. I felt lost, she continued. I didn't think you even noticed me anymore. And Zach did. She nodded once, slowly. He saw me. The version of me I used to be. That stung. But it also confirmed everything I had been feeling in the quiet hours of the night when she thought I was asleep and I was staring at the ceiling, wondering what part of me had become invisible. What version of you is that? I asked. The one who lies? Who cheats? I didn't plan it. No one ever does. She sat back down, hands in her lap. Her whole posture shifted. Deflated. Hollow. The performance was over. She wasn't even trying to spin the narrative anymore. You've already moved out, she asked, barely above a whisper. Almost. I have a new place. Rented it last week. Her eyes widened. You've been planning this? I've been preparing for it. There's a difference. Why didn't you say anything? I was waiting for you to say something first. We sat like that for a long time. Just breathing the same air, separated by more than a table. By everything unsaid, everything betrayed. Is this it? She asked finally. Are you really just walking away? I walked away the moment I saw you with him. This dinner? This was the conclusion. She looked around the room. At the plates, the candles, the wine. All of it part of a night she thought was reconciliation and I knew was revelation. You invited them just to do this? She asked. I nodded. I needed it to be real. For everyone. Haley's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. She was still trying to hold onto some version of composure. I never wanted to hurt you, she said softly. You just didn't care if you did. That landed. She looked down. You know, I said, standing again, there's this moment I keep thinking about. The morning of our wedding. You texted me an hour before the ceremony. Remember? Her eyes darted up, alarmed. I nodded. Yeah. You said you were having second thoughts. You said you kissed someone the night before. I read that message and deleted it. You never said it. I didn't want to ruin the day, I interrupted. I thought love would be enough to fix it. That we'd grow past it. That people mess up and we forgive. She stared at me like I was someone she didn't recognize. Maybe I wasn't. I gave you grace that morning, I said. Because I believed you were more than one mistake. Haley started crying. Really crying now. The kind that doesn't ask for comfort. Just release. I wish you'd told me back then, she whispered. I didn't want to start a marriage with confrontation. I thought we'd grow into something better. And now, I shrugged. Now I know we grew into exactly what we were always going to be. Only I was the last to see it. I walked to the entryway, grabbed the folder I'd left by the door, and placed it on the table. Inside, a copy of the lease, a note with the address, and the name of my lawyer. I'm not coming back tonight, I said. And I won't be coming back at all. She didn't try to stop me. I stood by the door, one hand on the knob. For what it's worth, she said, voice breaking. Zach wasn't the plan. I didn't wake up and choose this. No. But you didn't stop it either. I opened the door. You're not going to tell anyone? She asked. I don't have to. Then I left. Out into the night, into the quiet, into a city that didn't feel like mine anymore. But soon would again. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the mattress in my new apartment, staring at the ceiling fan, haunted by silence. Haley didn't text. I think she knew this wasn't one of those arguments you recover from. The next morning I returned briefly, alone, to gather a few remaining things. She wasn't there. I left my key on the counter. As I stepped out, I felt lighter. It wasn't relief, not yet. Just space. Breathable space. Later that week, I heard from Lana. A single message. Thank you for the truth. Zach was gone. Moved into a hotel, supposedly on a break. Our social circle unraveled fast. Whispers turned to certainty. No one blamed me for walking away. Some said they'd seen it coming. Others just stopped mentioning her name. I didn't ask anyone to choose sides, but most did anyway. Haley tried to rewrite the story quietly, claimed it was complicated, that I'd shut down emotionally, but no one bought it. Zach relocated within a month, his firm issuing a vague statement. Lana filed for divorce shortly after. I didn't celebrate any of it. There was no victory here, just survival. I focused on rebuilding my life one habit at a time. I read again for pleasure. Started running. I cooked small meals and sat with the quiet. Years later, I met someone unexpected. Someone real. She didn't want to change me, just understand me. And I realized something. The life I thought I had with Haley was only ever half honest. Now I live with less noise, fewer masks. It isn't perfect, but it's honest. And that's everything.